this morning, and I want to carry on with where I left off 2 weeks ago on Kingdom Incorporated. This is the theme for this month, but I want to pick up on this thought, and the thought is faith shift. How many were here 2 weeks ago on that Sunday morning? You were here, most of you were here, and we talked about faith shift and what that is. This is an interesting thing that I'm talking about right now. This entire month is going to be an interesting theme because of what is involved in it. For those that might still have some level of religion in us, there's always something that we have to break in us, all of us. None of us are exempt from having to break some old molds, some old mindsets, some things that were life to us at one time, and we never considered that they're no longer life to us anymore, but we just keep doing it because it became routine. It became easy, or for whatever reason, we just find ourselves continuing to do it. And oftentimes we do things, almost all of the time, in fact, we do things that started out as life, and then somehow in the process of being life, it became law. Life had long left it, but now we let the law try to provide for us what life once did. We get to the place where we hope that the law will provide the answer to what life once provided. And we do that innocently. We don't go into this thing thinking that way. I go back to some of the simpler things that might make sense to you. When we started the church, it was these are just some of the sillier things, or one of the sillier things. But I had to wear a suit. I mean, there was never a time I was not going to wear a suit when I preached. I was going to have a jacket on. I was going to be wearing a tie. And then I remember the difficulty in my own life, in my own mind, in my own heart, the first time I preached and actually didn't wear a jacket. Now, keep in mind the irony of this, or the foolishness of this, I guess is the right word. The foolishness of that is, as long as I started preaching in a jacket, I would always pull it off. And any of you that were here then, you know what I'm talking about. I never finished a service with a jacket on. But by God, I was going to start it with it. I would start with my jacket. It was going to be on me, and if it weren't on me, I would feel like I needed to pray 3 different ways in order to ask God to forgive me. And because that was a mindset. And then when I got past that, when I realized I didn't have to wear a jacket, and then I would just wear a tie and a shirt, man, that was liberating to me. But it was a challenge to get to that place. Then when I realized one day, man, you know what, I just really think I don't want to be wearing a noose around my neck today. I think I'm actually going to go and leave my collar undone. Oh, my Lord, have mercy. The mindset, it was end times. We had entered end times when I got to that place. I mean, it was tribulation was on its way, because now I'm not wearing a tie, and struggled through that. And then, Lord forbid, the day that I wore blue jeans and tennis shoes. And all these little transitions, and you just begin to think about all these things and these shifting moments that required. Now, I still want to look nice, and I want to look nice, and I think it's important that we do, whether we're on the platform or we're in the seat in the auditorium. I think it's important that we look nice with whatever we're wearing. I think we ought to be presentable and certainly modest in what we wear and how we wear it, and because we want to honor Him with it. But I say all that because as I consider where we're going this month, there's so many mindsets that exist in the church world today, and when I say the church world, the mindset doesn't exist in a building. The mindset doesn't even exist in a doctrine. Doctrines have no life of their own. The only life a doctrine has is the life that people give it. So mindsets, the only thing that is alive is what you give life to in your thinking, in your living, in your choices, in your decisions. Doctrines have no life of their own. They do not have the ability to carry on. If everybody stopped practicing a particular doctrine today in a generation past, no one would remember the doctrine. It would be dead. The only thing that keeps it alive is that it is picked up and carried from generation like a baton. It is passed from this one to the next one to the next one to the next one, and that's what keeps that thing alive. And what happens is sometimes we keep things alive for so long, we keep passing this baton that we never consider what actually what is this place where we're in? Does this baton have any life in it for this time, for this place? One of the religious mindsets that I had been in and have found myself in times past, and as I describe this, if you find that somehow this applied to you as well in the past or even in the present, that this applied to you as well, then no, I too have been there. So together we have kept good company. But we have kept the kind of company that hindered us from becoming all that we can be. So let me just talk about my place. So in my world, I'm in this thing, and some time ago, I don't know how long ago, before I came into the revelation of what the Father really had for you and me and what He believed about you and me and what you and I were able to do and capable of doing, before I came to the understanding of what our possibilities were, I lived with this idea and understanding and feeling of guilt and shame. If ever there was a moment of success, or if ever there was a reason to, for lack of a better word, it's probably not the best word, but it's the only word I can think of right now. If ever there was a time for me to brag about something that God had done that was amazing in my life, I didn't really want to say anything about it because it sounded like bragging. It felt like bragging, therefore I wouldn't want to say it. And whatever it might be, and you maybe have been there as well. So when success would come to me, really I would share it with my wife and my kids, and we would live in it and we would just enjoy it ourselves, but we would not be able to let other people do what Scripture says, rejoice with those who rejoice. We really robbed people of a lot of opportunities to rejoice with us. More me than my wife, because she was always willing to tell it, not because she's braggadocious, but because she had a revelation of it quicker than me. But I was careful, I was cautious. I didn't want to talk about certain things that occurred in my life because instead of feeling a sense of success and accomplishment, change and opportunity, I felt and accepted a sense of shame and embarrassment because of whatever success might have come. So I just didn't talk about it. There are people in this room that have felt that same way. I'm glad for the moment, the day, the hour, that time when the Father spoke to me and He said, "Man, would you just get outside of yourself? Will you just shake yourself a little bit and begin to see about you what I see about you? Will you begin to try to believe about you what I believe about you? Will you look in the mirror and just try, just this one time, just try to see the image that I see? Because when you look in that image, you think that you honor me because of your lowly living. You think somehow you honor me because of your lack of innovation. You think that somehow I'm honored because you're always working for somebody else." He said, but that's what you see when you look at yourself and you describe yourself, that's the image of you that you see, but the image of you that I see is an owner. I see an innovator. I see a dreamer. I see a visionary. I see faith. I see opportunity. And if I can get you to see the things that I see, I can get you to begin to change the society that I have planted you in for that purpose. If I could get you to understand that you live in Sanford not because you chose to be there. The house is in Sanford not because you chose to put it there. It is there because I planted you there. You were seed in my hand, and I put you there to change it in every way, dimensionally, relationally, physically. In every way, I planted you there. You are seed in the soil of Seminole County. What are you going to do with that, Steve? If you could just see what I see. Somebody needs to hear me today. Much of the church is uncomfortable with wealth and success because much of the church considers wealth and success as a man thing and not a God thing. If the earth is the Lord's and everything that's in it is the Lord's, then everything that's in the earth that is the Lord's is mine. and it is yours. And if the earth is the Lord's and everything that's in it is the Lord's and it belongs to you and me, the only reason I know that it belongs to you and me is because he said, I want you to take authority over it and rule and reign over this thing that I created. He said, I want you to position yourself within this earth that I created so that you can rule and reign over it. The problem with much of the church is because they're afraid of wealth and success so much that they don't become businessmen, they don't become politicians, they don't become attorneys, they don't become doctors, they don't do all these things. They're happy with being the people that have little or nothing because they're more comfortable in having little or nothing. Therefore, the world does not respect churches. The world isn't looking to the church for leadership. Why? I asked this 2 weeks ago. Why is it that the world's not looking to the church for leadership? Because there's very little leadership in the church. Until we give them something to look at, they're not going to look. Presidents aren't going to, well, for the most part, presidents aren't going to, of countries aren't going to the church world and saying, can you counsel us? Can you guide us? Why aren't they going to you or to me or to us? Why aren't they coming to us and saying, give me some wisdom, give me some counsel, prophesy, son of God, prophesy, child of God, prophesy, daughter of God, prophesy to us, prophesy. Where's this nation headed? How can we shift this? Why aren't they coming to the church? I mean, they'll come to one or to two or to who, they'll come to the popular ones, but they're not coming to the ones that have the most authority. Why aren't they doing that today? Because the world isn't looking to the church for leadership because there's a vacuum of leadership within the church. Because the church is afraid to be wealthy, the church is afraid to be successful, the church is afraid to be business owners, church people are afraid to be politicians because somehow they feel like, man, somehow I'm going to dishonor God if I get into this place, and they're worried about whether or not they're going to serve money, and they're worried about whether or not they're going to serve their success, and so on and so on. I'm going to tell you what, let God straighten that out. You'll never know if you don't get there. We'll never know if we don't arrive at that place. How are we ever going to know what we'll do with success if we don't ever arrive there? We'll never know what we'll do with wealth if we never lay hold of it. This whole year, everything's going to revolve around balancing and reconciling all the accounts in your life, financially, relationally, spiritually. Balancing and reconciling, and this is what we're doing when we talk about Kingdom Incorporated. We're talking about balancing and reconciling these places in our mind, our mindsets, our thoughts, our processes, everything that's in the world, these dimensions that we dwell in. And I'm not talking about other dimensional. I'm talking about this dimension that we dwell in right now. This place that I exist at this time in Sanford, Florida, in Seminole County, Florida. What am I doing with my opportunities right here? Am I positioning myself to be a wealthy guy? I'm going to tell you, you want to get people's attention, get wealth. You want people to come and say, I'm going to find out how I'm going to do something. You want to get wealth. Because all of a sudden, you get wealth, you get respect. People say, I don't know, that's, again, you start worshiping money. Now, it sounds like you're telling us to worship money. No, I'm not. Listen, I'm going to tell you there's two currencies. There's the currency of the kingdom, that's called faith. And then there's the currency of the world, that's called money. And guess who owns them both? No one ever printed a dollar that didn't get the wisdom to print it from God. No one ever made a machine that didn't get the wisdom to create it from God. Somebody needs to hear what I'm saying this morning. Why aren't we the ones with the why aren't we making the machine and then sell it to the earth? Why aren't we coming up with the meds and sell it to the earth? We should own the pharmaceuticals. Somebody needs to hear what I'm talking about this morning. So what is our destiny? I'm going to tell you what our destiny is in 2 words. Innovation and ownership. I want you to hear my voice. I want you to listen to what I'm saying, but within that, I want you to hear the anointing of God in what He wants to say and do this morning. Will you do that? Will you let Him stir you? Will you let Him provoke you? All right, well, because He's going to. And it's going to be good, and it will be good for those that will receive it. I want you to say this with me this morning. Say, innovation and ownership is my destiny. There's just a lot to love about that right there. So the world isn't knocking down the doors of the church to go in there and find out, okay, we need somebody to tell us how do we put this and this together. They're not coming to the church and saying, okay, we need technology so that we can know how to do this with a phone, or we can do this with a computer, or we can do this with a whatever. They're not coming to the church and asking the church for that because they know the answer's not in the church. Because it's not in the church today. I know we want to be faith and we want to prophesy and say, oh, it's all in the church, it's all in the church, and it's not in the church. It's in Egypt. I'm talking about Egypt spiritually. It's in Babylon. It's outside of the church. Because all the innovation and all the dreams and all the ideas and all the value and all the wealth and all the opportunity and all the ownership, all of that is happening outside of the church because everybody in the church is so concerned about being meek and lowly, we don't get an education. We don't become doctors. We don't become lawyers. We don't become politicians. We don't become business owners. We don't do any of these things because we gotta maintain this low profile and stay under the radar because, we don't want to shine too much because that's and pride might set in and all these things might happen. So we got to stay under the radar just enough where, we just got to make sure that God always gets the glory. I'm going to tell you, where's the most glory? In the guy that is absolutely nothing or the guy that absolutely becomes something? Do you think he goes, woo, I am so glorified in your nothingness? I'm so honored by you being a nobody. Can you be a nobody even better than that? I want to help you be a better nobody. I want to help you be a better nothing. I'm so glorified in your poor living. I just want to help you be more poor. Because if he's getting all that glory in that, then let's just not have anything. If we're glorifying him because of our meek and lowly living, let's just give it all away and let's just walk around begging on the road. Does anybody hear what I'm talking about this morning? If he's so glorified in the church, in the kingdom of God, and in you, and in me, and in us, if he's so glorified in us having this mentality where, we can't be wealthy, we can't be innovators, we can't be owners, we can't be dreamers, we can't be visionaries. If he's so glorified in us being nobodies, then why are we gathering this morning? Because I'm telling you, you don't need what I'm talking about. Because you're not going to keep coming here and stay a nobody. If you do, it's not going to be because of lack of teaching. It's going to be because of a lack of willingness to work. So if I believe all of that, then I believe that innovation and ownership is my destiny, then I believe I have to reposition myself. Does anybody in here believe that? Somehow, if this is true, then I need to reposition myself because I believe that God simply has something more for me than what I'm accessing right now. Do you believe that about you? Innovation and ownership. What is innovation? Innovation is changing what's currently existing. I'm paraphrasing this. I'm making it quick. Innovation is your ability, my ability to see past where we currently are, coming up with a different pathway, coming up with a different plan. Sometimes coming up with a different plan means coming up with faith that actually is already there. I never tapped it. Never drew on it. Do you hear me today? So what's your destiny? Innovation. Innovation, 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 ownership. I'm going to own it. I'm going to innovate and then I'm going to own. Now somebody might say, well, I don't know. I'm a little old now. I'm a little older. I'm on the backside of this phase of my life, so I don't know how much I can innovate and how much I can own. Really? Really? Then you're the one that really needs to hear what I'm saying. Because everything's not laid up for the millennials. The millennials are all like, oh, well, let's fight over it. That's what we got to do. We got to provoke one another. Okay, well, I want the millennials to say, well, you're not getting it because we're going to do so. We're going to be creative and innovative, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I want you to do that. And then I want the older folks. And then those of us that are in the middle. Some of us can reach both ways. to innovate, and to change, and to challenge one another, and to provoke one another, because that is our destiny. Innovation and ownership. Say it with me. Innovation and ownership. Oh man, say it with conviction. Innovation and ownership. It's my destiny. That is my destiny. That is my promise. That is my promise. I'm an innovator. I'm an owner. Well, I'm not an owner yet. I'm going to be an owner. I'm not innovated yet. I'm innovating. The world looking for leaders. They're not finding them in the church. They're about to. I can't speak for any other church, but I can speak for this one. I can't speak for any other house, but I can speak for this one. I'm telling you what, we're raising people up. We're going to put your hiney in college. We're going to get you educated. We're going to make you innovators. We're going to turn you in. We're going to make you believe about you what Yahweh believes about you. Cause you to come to the place where you have as much faith in you as He has in you. The only way we become innovators is if we stop waiting on Him to open up all this stuff and to do all this stuff, and we begin to position ourselves with the wisdom and the knowledge and the opportunity and the passion and the fire that He put in you the moment He breathed breath into your body. I got to move along. Turn with me to Jeremiah chapter 29. Jeremiah 29. This word consider that I talked about, strongest word in the English language, at least to me, at least at this time, because you have to think about everything, and you have to consider everything I'm telling you today. Some of you are having to consider right now. Some of you will not get past what I just said to you because you're going to be considering that for the rest of the service. So you won't hear anything else I've got to say. You'll have to go online and listen to it. Because you're going to sit and you're going to consider everything that you just heard, because there's a part of you that wants to argue against what I just said. There's a part of you that wants to explain it away. Well, no, God does open this and God does open that. It's never done it. What He does is He created. He said, I created. Now I'm going to give you opportunity to rule and reign over it. And you're going to rule because I have faith in you that you can actually rule and reign over it. Now I'll put things in place so that you can lay hold of it. But I'm not opening it up. I might give you a car, but I'm not driving the car for you. I'm going to give you the lesson, but I'm not going to learn it for you. You're going to apply yourself. You're going to do. And that's part of the problem, because the church is so afraid of works, because they've so misconstrued the Scripture. They're so afraid of works that they just want to stand around believing all day long but not doing anything. What are you? I'm just believing. It's not getting done. Yeah, because I can't do works, but I can believe. Watch me believe. That's some serious believing, man. You squint your eyes. You work with His faith and He'll work with yours. The faith that He gives you, the faith that He puts in you. You ready to read? Let's find out what He called us to do. Let me just jump into this. We read this, we're probably going to read it every week. But we read this a couple weeks ago. I'm going to read it again to you today because I want you to understand what the Father wants to do with you. And I don't know how He wants to do it. I don't know what it looks like when He wants to do this with you. But let's read it real quick because I got some things I want to share. And I'm going to dive into this even thicker second service. Jeremiah chapter 29 verses 1, skip 2 and 3, and we'll jump through 4 through 9. Says this: These are the words of the letter that Jeremiah the prophet sent from Jerusalem to the surviving elders of the exiles and to the priests, the prophets, and all the people whom Nebuchadnezzar had taken into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. And this is what the letter said, jumping to verse 4. This is what it says. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, to all the exiles whom I have sent into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. This is what I want you to do. This is what the letter says. Everybody say, came from Yahweh. This letter came from Yahweh. I appreciate Jeremiah being the deliverer, but the letter came from Yahweh. Jeremiah is doing something. Jeremiah is leading. Jeremiah is leading. So he says this is what I want you to do. This is what the letter said. Do this. Do these things right here. He said, I want you to build houses, and I want you to live in them. I want you to plant gardens, and I want you to eat its produce. Said, I want you to take wives, and I want you to have sons, and I want you to have daughters. I want you to then to take wives for your sons, and I want to give your daughters in marriage so that they can bear sons and they can bear daughters. I want you to multiply. And he said, I don't want you to decrease. I want you to increase. Why? Why? Key word there. Why does he want us to increase? Not because so we can walk around and always be the ones that need the world. Let's be real this morning. We really need the world today because we haven't learned how to not need the world. We need the world to provide us jobs. That's pathetic. I depend on the earth to provide jobs for us. I depend on unrighteous people to create businesses, to dream, to have visions, and to raise up and to take risks. I have to depend on unrighteous people. We have to depend on unrighteous people that don't love God, some don't even acknowledge God, to provide income for you and me so that we can eat. Is there anything wrong with that picture? Everything is wrong with that picture. Everything is wrong with that. Think about this. I don't know if you just got what I just said. I need you to get what I said to you just a moment ago. We will walk out of this building today. We're going to go out into society, into our communities, into our homes and our neighborhoods and wherever it is we're going tomorrow. We're going to wake up in the morning. Better than that, we're going to walk out of here. Some people are going to go to restaurants that we've depended on unrighteous people to raise up and to build and to own so that we can eat their food that they're cooking for us. We're going to depend on them to do it. And then we're going to write them a tip, and we're going to be sowing money into them. They should be coming to you and me and the businesses we own. Then we're going to get up in the morning, we're going to go to work for somebody who unrighteously raised up a building because they were smart enough to go get an education. Because they had enough foresight and enough passion and enough stamina and enough willingness, and they weren't lazy, and they said, you know what, I'm going to go get an education, and I'm going to start a business, and I'm going to be a wealthy guy, and I'm going to employ people who won't do it for themselves. Anybody hearing what I'm saying in here this morning? Does that sound like the kind of God? Do you think that's what he wants us doing? Making bricks for the Egyptians? That's what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to wake up tomorrow morning and we're going to ask them, how much mud? How much straw today? How many bricks, sir, do you want us to make today? We don't even have the right to say, and how much you're going to pay us. Because he's in charge. He can determine what your wealth or lack of is. Or she. So we're going to wake up in the morning, we're going to make bricks for the Egyptians. Is that God's plan for you and me? Is that God's plan for the... You know what? The church is comfortable in that, though. You know what? Because the church has been making bricks longer than 400 years. We know Israel was locked up in that for 400 years, but you know what? I'm glad they came out of it. Too bad we can't. Too bad we got so comfortable in that thing, we're just going to keep making bricks. Listen, Moses, don't you lead us out of this place because at least I have a home to go to. Moses, don't you lead us out. Moses, don't you get us in trouble. You're messing us up, Moses, because I can tell you today, at least when I get out here and I make bricks, I don't have to worry about getting beat or being hungry. Father's like, good night, Almighty. I just need somebody to get some faith. I believe in these people, but they don't even have faith. They think if they don't make bricks for the Egyptians, they're going to starve. Somebody needs to hear what I'm telling you today. We're innovators. We are owners. We need to be innovators. We need to be owners. Right now, you need to be considering there need to be some innovative things going on in your mind. Okay, tomorrow, I know I got to get up in the morning and make bricks for the Egyptians because I don't have another choice tomorrow. But I'm going to start positioning myself to have faith, the kind of faith in me that God has in me, until I begin to come up with ideas so that I don't have to make bricks for the Egyptians anymore, and the Egyptians have to come to me for bricks. Because I'm a job. No, you don't. You are not hearing what I'm telling you today. He said, build houses and live in them, plant gardens, eat their produce, take wives, have sons and daughters, take wives for your sons, give your daughters in marriage so they can bear sons and daughters, multiply there, do not decrease. I want you to multiply because I want them coming to you. I want you to be so many in number that there's not enough opportunities left for the unrighteous. If they want to have opportunity, they're going to have to come to know me. If they want to work, they're going to have to come to know God. You see, right now the world can say, you know what, because you're a church, you know what, you don't have the authority to determine who's going to work for you. We can force you to hire a homosexual. We can force you to hire an adulterer. We can force you to hire this. We can force you to do that because we make the rules. What happens one day when all of a sudden the church is making the rules and we say, you're not working unless you come to know God? You get your life right and we'll let you work. Until then, get in the mud pile and make bricks. No, you're not hearing what I'm telling you this morning. You need to lay hold of what I'm preaching this morning, because I am doggone preaching this morning. I was out last week. I got to get it all out this week. Take wives, have sons and daughters, multiply there, do not decrease. Listen to this. You ready for this? Oh, man, get ready. This is in bold on mine. That's because I copied and pasted and then made it bold. It's not bold. This is bold. You ready? Then he says this. This is really cool. Everybody say cool. Man, I'm telling you, this is super, super cool, baby. He said, seek the welfare of the city where I send you into exile. What? Seek the welfare of the city where I sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on that city's behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. When the city succeeds, you succeed. The city succeeds because you position yourself to lead within the city. Seek the welfare of the city. What can I do to change the city? I can change my position. I can stop being the brick maker and become the company owner. This isn't my word. This is the word of the Lord. We quote that scripture, man, we talk about it all the time. Oh, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. Man, I'm just so happy to be a part of it. And the Lord is saying, you know, the earth is mine. Everything in it is mine. And I really wish you'd take ownership. I really wish you'd own this thing. Well, you know what? We're just good Christians, and we know that there's this poverty thing, and you know, Christians are supposed to be poor and lowly and meek and lowly and all of these things, and we're not supposed to have anything. I don't know what Bible they got that out of, but they didn't get that out of the Holy One. In fact, that's what he said to Abraham. He said, I don't want you to just be prosperous. I want you to be very prosperous. I don't want you to do well. I want you to do better than everybody else. Do you hear me today? I got to move along. Man, I'm going to have to wrap it up here in just a minute. This part. You guys are going to have to hang around for the next part. Seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and then pray to the Lord on its behalf, because in its welfare you're going to find your welfare. Depending on how that city's doing, it'll be determined on how you're doing. But he said, this is what I want you to do. If you'll go in there and you will increase, you back up the verse before that, you go in there and you increase, you begin to take ownership, you begin to change things, you change the welfare of the city. Again, we're going to get up in the morning. I just want to remind you what you're going to do tomorrow. You're going to get up and you're going to make bricks for the Egyptians. How long are you going to be okay with that? For thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, do not let your prophets and your diviners who are among you deceive you. And do not listen to the dreams that they dream, for it is a lie that they are prophesying to you in my name. I did not send them, declares the Lord. Anybody that tells you anything, he said anybody telling you anything different than letting you know that you can be the owner, that you have a right to lay hold of what I have created and what I have built. Anybody that tells you anything different is a liar, he said. Even if they're standing behind the pulpit this morning, he said they're lying to you if they're telling you you got to stay meek and lowly and you can't have anything, you can't own anything. So they're lying against the truth, and he said, don't pay attention to them. Therefore, I'm going to tell you this morning, you need to be listening to the words that I'm saying to you today. I'm not God, but I am His voice this morning. And if you'll hear what I'm telling you today, what does that mean to you? I don't know, but I'm going to tell you today, when you walk out of it, you need to begin to consider, I'm an innovator and I'm an owner. Well, I'm not yet. Well, I'm declaring I am. Because He has faith in me. I'm an innovator and I'm an owner. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Listen to me now. You are not too young and you are not too old. I don't know where you are, what place in life you're in. I can look around this room and I can make some assumptions, but I wouldn't even begin to dare to do that because I'm going to tell you, there is no such thing as an age barrier in the kingdom of God. We live in a realm and in a plane that is not defined by what man's mind can define it with. We have opportunities that man has not yet even discovered. There are things lying in wait for you and for me. There are dreams and inventions and ideas and thoughts and ways and means have yet to be discovered. They've been stored up for you and for the righteous. Yahweh has His own Fort Knox, and within that Fort Knox, within the walls of that Fort Knox, interesting thing is it's not locked up, it's opened up, and nobody wants to access His Fort Knox. When we start accessing His Fort Knox, and He says, I'm not talking about gold bullion, I'm talking about ideas, I'm talking about purpose, I'm talking about possibilities, I'm talking about opportunities. And He says within this thing, it's wide open for the believer. If they'll just get faith in them like I have faith in them, they'll find out that, man, over here on this shelf is this business for you, and over here on this one's this business for you. And the day is going to come, they're going to come to the church and they're going to start looking to you for leadership. They're going to look to you and say, can I apply here? Are you saved? Are you a tither? Well, I'm not a tither. Well, then sorry. Well, you can't do that. Well, we're writing the rules now. Well, we'll shut you down. You shut down there'll be no business because we're coming to that place. You need to hear what I'm telling you this morning. Are you hearing what I'm saying to you today? Let's move along. I want to read this to you real quick. I read an article 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. This lady's name, I don't know how to say her first name. I think it's Melia, maybe Robinson. And she was writing for an article, thing that I read. It's called Business Insider. I don't know if any of you read that. It's interesting. I like it. And but she was writing an article for an online, whatever you call it, in this Business Insider. And she wrote this on February the 28th, and I thought this was very interesting. This is what she said. She was talking about Bill Gates, and she was responding to a question about something that did she think, or did he think, that we were going to come into this place again where the markets crashed and society went through another cycle and so on. So let me tell you why now you might disagree with what I'm about to say, but you'll be wrong. And then I'm going to tell you what it is I'm going to say. The reason that the markets go through cycles today is because it's unrighteous people that are operating them. So, see, my wife and I were listening to something, just a little clip of a man that we know, a minister that we know that is a kingdom man, and he said something yesterday that so resonated with me, and he was talking about, he said, there's no such thing as seasons. He said, Scripture says that the leaf will not wither, which means while seasons pertain to the natural, there is a singular season, and that is of living that exists in the kingdom. Because in the kingdom, it doesn't matter what season it is, spring, winter, summer, fall. He said the leaf will not wither. In the kingdom of God, the leaf does not have to fade. Opportunity does not blow away, does not fall off the tree. And this really is applicable to what I'm talking about this morning. Because, see, the reason that there are cycles in the markets today is because everything's based seasonally. Everything in the market world, everything in business today is based, Tim, on whether or not people are adjusting. They're raising interest rates, lowering interest rates, raising bond rates, whatever they're doing all of these things, and they're trying to manually manipulate the economy. They're trying to do that with whatever insight that they have, but all of their insight, all of their intellect is based on the natural. None of these people are by the Spirit hearing and obeying and responding to the word and the purpose of God for that time. But imagine when righteous men and women get into this place, there won't be these fluctuations in the market. There won't be these up and downs because the leaf will not wither, but there'll be a steady course. Because when you begin to interpret things by the Word and Spirit of God, the Word and Spirit of God for the righteous is not going to be that there's rises and falls, but it's going to be that there is a steady life flow. There'll be no tear. There'll be no weeping. There'll be no gnashing of teeth in that place where it's steady. There'll be none of that in that place where the Father has provided a pathway and a plan. Are you hearing what I'm saying this morning? So see, the markets do what they do because it's operated and run by unrighteous people. People that don't understand how to hear the voice of God. Do they even pray? And if they do pray, is there any faith in it? Are they praying because that's tradition? Or are they praying because they believe? You have to ask these questions. I'm asking this today. I'm asking you today. So she writes this article and she asked Bill Gates, what do you think about this? And he said, well, it's just the nature and blah, 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 blah. But let me read to you what I took a clip out of it because it's quite a long, like 4-page article, but I took one paragraph, condensed it in one. Bill Gates ended his reply by saying this to this person. Despite this prediction of bumps ahead, I am quite optimistic about how innovation and capitalism will improve the situation for humans everywhere. Referring to the possibility of another economic downturn as it was in 2008, Gates then says, these things don't happen automatically. It's because people care, and it's because of scientific inventions. I want to skewer that. See, even in the natural, he understands that it is innovation and invention that actually will create the market. It will create the opportunity. It will create the abundance. He's coming at it from a very natural standpoint. Now, when you transfer that to the kingdom of God, to where you and I are today, what happens when the righteous rise up? When the righteous begin to own? I'm going to ask a question. I don't want you to raise your hand, but I wonder how many business owners are in this room right now. There are some. There are some. I don't want anybody to raise your hand. But if I compared that to how many would raise their hand when I asked the question, and how many are making bricks for the Egyptians, we would be astounded at the difference. Are we okay with that? Do we simply go on accepting this because we just don't have the energy to be innovative? We don't have the patience to sit down and turn off This Is Us so that we consider what He might be doing in us or through us? Are we okay with this lopsided thing? Because if I go out into society today and I walk down there and I go to a restaurant and I ask, of all the unrighteous people here that don't serve God and are willing to admit it, how many of you are business owners? We would be shocked at the difference between how many are business owners and how many are actually making bricks for the Egyptians. The difference would be dramatic between out there and what's in here. Because they own it, and we keep making them successful owners because we're just happy working for them. So we keep going to them, and we keep going to them looking for raises. We keep going to them looking for money. We keep going to them because we have dreams and visions, and if they'll just pay me more, then I'll be able to do this. And the Father's saying, what do you mean if they'll pay you more? Have you ever heard of Shark Tank? Little simple things that to you and I, when we sit around and we think about some of the simplest things. I watched the other day, my wife and I, we really enjoy Shark Tank because I love the idea of invention. I love the idea of innovation. I'm stirred today in a way that I have not been stirred. I've always been interested, but never like I am today. And I was listening and watching the other day, or reading another article, because I read a lot of articles. And I was reading another article, and it was talking about the little doorbell called Ring, that you put out there, and it has a little camera on it, and you ring it, and somebody can see you on your phone, and they can let you in, or they can tell you no, or they can talk to you. You don't know if they're home or not, and you do all that stuff. And 5 years ago, the guy that invented this, it was called something else then. I think I See You or something like that. That's creepy. Whatever it was called. I don't remember what it was called. So, if you're going to sue me at least with the truth that I'm admitting I don't know what it was called, but it was something bizarre like that. It wasn't catchy. It was creepy. So the guy goes on Shark Tank 5 years ago with this thing, and he tries to sell it to these billionaires that are sitting there that invest in these entrepreneurs and these new companies, these innovative ideas and these new technology and so on and so forth. He tries to sell it to them, and they're all saying, Kevin and what's the guy in the middle, the bald-headed guy, the Mr. Wonderful. Yeah, he's like, no, that'll never sell. Nobody, that's creepy. Nobody wants that. Who wants to see who's at your door? Who wants to look at your phone? Nobody wants to do that, man. That's a flop. Blah, get out of here, man. We don't want that. That's a stupid name anyway. Man, I can't even believe, and that's the way he is. He's just like that. And he's like, get out of my space, man. You're breathing my air, man. You're sucking all the ideas out of the room. The guy turns around and he walks out of the room. 5 years ago, walks out of the room, and he says, you know what? I'm not giving up. I've got this little cool thing that nobody's bought yet. But if I can market this right, somebody will. Somebody will see the value in this thing. Rascal sold it. $1.2 billion to Amazon last week. 5 years later, the guy was broke, didn't have 2 pennies to rub together 5 years ago. Now he's a billionaire. Because he took something everybody else that thought they knew what they were talking about, said, that'll never make it. Nobody wants that. And he said, well, somebody does because I made it. Only reason you know where innovation is born? Out of need. Innovation is born because we realize one day, you know what? I don't like mucking horse stalls. I got to innovate something that mucks it all by itself. It's not going to happen today. Maybe it's not going to happen tomorrow. But are you positioning yourself to come to a place where you're an innovator, where you become an owner, where you come to the place where now you're not limited by those things and you're actually glorifying Him because it's evident, it is obvious He is doing a work in your life and things are actually changing. You're learning something. You're growing out of nothingness into something. You're tired of being a nobody. There's a lot of nobodies sitting in churches today. A lot of nobodies. I don't know where you are. You tell me. You tell you. Don't tell me. I don't even want to know. You tell you. What are you? Are you a nobody today? Or are you just nobody? You just, when the Father looks at you and He says, man, am I glorified by this? And yet you can't do anything. You have no authority. You have no power. You have no zeal. You're not changing anybody's life. You're not a voice. Nobody will listen to what you got to say. Why am I saying all that? I'm saying all that. Am I saying it to make you mad? I'm saying that to make a change. So what you do, if we can accept where we are and we can say, you know what, I am a nobody today. I'm not doing much of anything, or I'm barely somebody. And I'm kind of hanging out in this place, and there's no growth going on in me. And the reason there's no growth going on in me is because I'm not applying myself. He's given me all the gifts. He's given me all the tools. He's made me an innovator. He wants me to be an owner. He's breathed life into me. He's given me everything that I need. I've got a preacher up there that's going to tell me the truth no matter whether I like it or not. I've got everything that I need. All I need to do is apply myself. What am I going to do with that? You know what? If you get mad about where you are right now, what I want to do is I want to stir you up. I want to make you angry at you, not at me. I want to make you angry at you so that you begin to change that and you begin to say, okay, what can I do to change this nobody place into a somebody place? What can I do to shift my positioning so that now He is honored by the very things that I do, so that the Father can say, you know what, I'm proud of this nobody that has now become a somebody because now you have a voice. God's not honored by a people who have no voice. If nobody's listening to anything that you've got to say, you want to position yourself to be in a place of leadership? Kingdom Incorporated is all about coming to the place where we know where we're at. Faith shift. It's believing about me what He believes about me. And it's coming to the place where people want to listen to what I've got to say. I'm positioning myself. You know how they're going to listen to what you've got to say? They're not going to listen to what you've got to say if you keep dropping out of college. They're not going to listen to what you've got to say if you come up short on everything you try to do and you just stop halfway because you're tired, you're weary, you had to stay up too late or get up too early. They're not going to listen to what you got to say because you had to sweat a little bit, so you quit that job because you wanted a job where you could be in air conditioning. They're not going to listen to what you say if you keep changing jobs every other week just because you didn't like the way the boss looked at you or acted about you or said about you or whatever it was he said. Whatever they say, who cares? Do what you do with your whole heart. Is anybody hearing what I'm saying this morning? I'm talking about a kingdom shift. I'm talking about a faith shift this morning. The place where you get in there and you're just like, I hear a lot of people a lot of times, and I got to get on this soapbox. I hear a lot of people a lot of times, and they talk about their bosses. Man, you don't know. I got an employer, man, they do this, they do that, they do all the other. That's right. You know why they can? Because they own it. And when you own it, you can shut your mouth and you can do it different. But until you own it, take it. Until you own it, take it. Stop complaining about your boss. Well, they get paid too much. They make me work too much. Yeah, well, that's because you haven't positioned yourself in a place where now you can decide what the hours are. And when you apply yourself and you can decide what the hours are, then you can change everything. But you're not going to change it because you're complaining about it. Does anybody hear me? This is what the kingdom looks like. I don't like how much I'm paid. I don't like that I don't get these benefits. I don't like that I got to do this. I don't like that I've got to drive all the way over there. Well, the answer isn't getting another job. The answer is changing your position. The answer is changing your mentality. The answer is accepting about yourself, you know what, I'm an innovator. I need to be a dreamer. I need to be a visionary. I need to begin to see what I have not seen yet. And guess what? He's got it. I said it in the first service. I'll say it again. He's got a Fort Knox in heaven for you and me. He's got this place called Fort Knox. He's got things locked up for you, purpose and dreams and visions and opportunities that are locked up for you and for me, things that are waiting for us to lay hold of. And we don't have to pay for it. We can just lay hold of it. We can own it, but we got to believe for it. He's not going to give it to anybody else. But you know what? He wants you to be leaders. He wants you to be innovators. He wants you to be the doctors. He wants you to be the lawyers. He wants you to get your education. We cannot change society when we're always letting society make the rules. We cannot change cultures when we're always letting culture decide what the rules are. They tell us what rules to play by. They tell us who we can hire, who we can fire. They tell us how long we got to keep them. They tell us what we've got to pay them. Because that's government, that's society, that's what they tell us. That's what Egypt tells us, Babylon tells us. This is what you can do. These are how many crops you can have. And if you have more crops than that, we're going to have to subsidize you because we don't want you to grow too much. We want to make sure you keep it within our limits. What happens when the church changes that around and we stop going to Egypt for our instruction and our direction and our rules, and we begin to write them ourselves, and we begin to own, and we begin to possess, and we begin to operate and function in the places that He's created and birthed us to function and operate in? What happens then? What happens? I want to fire you up. I want you to stop being so stinking heavenly minded. You are absolutely no earthly good. You come to a place where you begin to realize, you know what, my destiny is tied up in whether or not I'm willing to get up every morning and consider the possibility that this might be the last day I make bricks for another man. You did not hear what I just said. Maybe today's the last day that I let them tell me how much straw I got to throw in the mud, how much mud I got to make, and how many walls and how high I got to build them. Maybe today's the day that I go to them and I give them a pink slip and I say, today's my last day working for you. I'm about to start a business, and you come to me, you're going to be asking me. And guess what? You're not going to tell me what you're going to pay. I'm going to tell you what you're going to pay me for my product, for what I'm selling. You're going to be the buyer, and I'm going to be the seller. I'm going to be the employer. You're going to be the employee. It's a faith shift. I'm changing direction, changing perspective because I'm an innovator. I'm an owner. I'm going to own it. I'm not going to Egypt looking for leadership anymore. I'm changing at least what's happening in this house so that Egypt has to, Sanford's going to start coming to us and saying, listen, we need to know something. You got some brilliant folks in that building. We need to know how can we do this and this and this. And I'm going to tell them, you send your tithe this month and I'll tell you. We don't give anything away for free. Not to the ungodly. We'll give you an opportunity to get saved. If you reject that, everything else costs you. Because we're owners. Because we're innovators. Because we believe about us what God believes about us. We have faith, the kind of faith in ourselves that the Father has in us. He didn't put you on the earth because he had a hiccup. He didn't burp and you came out. It wasn't after a bad spaghetti meal. You're on this earth because he had a plan for you, a P-L-A-N. And he said, I need him. I need her. And I'm putting something in them that I need them to create and to do. He didn't put you on this earth because he wants you to be a nobody. He put you on this earth because he wants you to be a somebody. Now, in your mind, you might be saying, I am somebody. Bless God, I am somebody. Yet you got nothing. No, you're not. You're nobody. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to be politically correct and try to pat your back and wipe your nose and change your britches. I'm going to tell you the truth today. If you're not doing anything, you're nobody. Be honest with yourself. Look in the mirror and say, you're not doing anything, you're not changing anything, nobody's listening to you, you're nobody. Go ahead and be honest with yourself. Somebody's getting mad at me right now. Somebody's just getting all offended about it. Well, that's not true because we're all something in Jesus. We're all something in Jesus. We are something in Jesus. You're a nobody in Jesus. You're a somebody in Jesus. You're a fly in his soup. I'm just trying to tell the truth today. I thought I was preaching to people that like the truth. I got to push because I'm going to tell you, I'm trying to raise up a people that are somebodies. I'm trying to raise up a people that are somebodies. You've always got something to give. You know what? The kingdom of God is marked by people who are giving. And I'm not talking about what you do on Sunday morning when somebody stands up and receives a tithe and offering. I'm talking about what you do when you walk out of this building. The kingdom is marked by your ability to clothe the naked, to feed the hungry, to visit those that are in prison. Nobody can't do that because they're always looking for somebody else to give them a dime. I can't give anything to anybody else because I'm always in need because you're a nobody. And you're happy being a nobody. I'm being painfully honest this morning. I'm going to tell you the truth. You got comfortable being a nobody. You got comfortable always depending on other people. I said to my wife the other day about the way some parents raise their children. The danger today, the way parents raise their kids is you got some parents that raise their children to be dependent. All their life, you raise them to be dependent. Doesn't matter how old they are, you're wiping their nose, you're tying their shoes, you're changing their clothes, you're washing their clothes, you're doing their dishes, you're carrying stuff from their bedroom to the kitchen. You're raising them up to be dependent. Long as mama's here, long as daddy's here, you're just never going to have to do anything. You're raising them up to be dependent. You are destroying that child. But when the day comes that you raise it, you got a choice. You raise your child up to be dependent or you raise your child to be responsible. And when you can raise up a child to be responsible and know when it's their turn, get your own stinking dishes and put them in the dish. Don't just stick them in the sink, rinse them off and put them in the dishwasher. Tie your own shoe, change your own clothes, wash your own clothes. Cut the grass. Well, I don't know. I had something I had to do today, Dad. I had a video game expose thing I got to be at. Well, guess what? It's digital. Pause it. Cut the grass, and then go hit resume. You can raise children to be dependent, or you can raise children to be responsible. The parent that raises their children to be dependent destroys their children. They're always babies. My wife and I have 3 children. Most of you know that, some of you don't. We didn't make all our children are blessing to us in every way. But the decisions that my wife and I made as we were raising our children, we didn't make every decision right. We made some errors along the way. When we recognized we made errors, we repented of those errors and we corrected those errors. And we moved on. One thing that we did do that was right in all of that is, one of the things that we've had this revelation for a long time, and that is that we were going to raise our children to be responsible. I have a son serving in missions today in Honduras, serving there for a year in a land where he knew nobody when he went over there, and he's been serving there for 8 months. He's got 4 more months to go. He's serving over there, and he can do it. Why? Because he became a responsible young man. Many people's sons would never, now you need to be called to do that, but they would never do that because they would never be away from mom and daddy. When Joshua was 6 years old, one day he got in trouble, and I said to my wife, he wants to stay home. What we're going to do, we're going to get in the car, and we're going to leave him in the house. We're going to drive. We won't make it out of the driveway. He'll be at the window screaming for us, please come back. We got out of the driveway. There was no Josh in the window. We drove around the block and just stood on the corner so that we could see the house. There was no Josh. He didn't come out crying. 6 years old. We snuck in, snuck around. We went in the door. You know what Joshua was doing? He could have cared less. He's playing with his cars and his trucks. Woo! You know who got hurt in that? We did. You don't need us. Kaylee was babysitting our children and other people's children at home alone at 10 years old. 10 years old. She was babysitting our kids and other people's kids home alone at 10 years. There are 10-year-old kids that I know, they need a babysitter. There are 15-year-olds I know that need a babysitter. Like I said, we didn't do everything right, but we did do that. We raised responsible kids. I'm preaching this morning. Now, this might not sound like the gospel you're used to hearing when you come to church on Sunday morning. But this is the gospel of the kingdom that will actually change a life and bring change to you and me. And not just bring... See, the gospel of the kingdom was never meant just to change a man or a woman. It was meant to change the earth. See, the gospel is supposed to do what it was sent to do, and the gospel is supposed to create in you and in me the wisdom and the knowledge and the understanding that we need to rule and reign over the earth that is the Lord's and everything in it. We cannot rule and reign over the earth that belongs to the Lord and everything in it if we do not have the wisdom and the knowledge to do so. We can gather together in churches all day long and simply learn about getting saved every single Sunday when we come in and get saved over and over and over again, but never learn about the intricacies of the kingdom of God and what's in the room, what's beyond the door, what's beyond salvation. There's just salvation. Salvation is amazing. That's the doorway. But what's beyond that? When we can begin to grasp that and get a hold of that, then we can begin to rule and reign. See, we don't rule and reign. Christians don't rule and reign the earth today. That was our assignment. You know, that's our assignment. That's what he said in Genesis. That's our assignment. To rule and reign over that he created. It's all his. And it's our assignment. He put us here to rule and reign over this thing. But we're ill-qualified. We're not qualified to do it. We've turned it all over to Egypt. We've turned it all over to Babylon. We've turned it all over to society. And we've said to Seminole County. And we've said to Orange County. And we've said to governments. We've said, you take it and run and reign with it because we just want to be meek and lowly. We don't want to be responsible for any of this stuff. We just want to keep trying to find our way because we like being nobodies. We've grown, it's easy to be a nobody. I don't have to study. I don't have to get up early. I don't have to go to work. I don't have to answer it. I don't have to do any of these things because being a nobody is easier than becoming a somebody. But being a nobody never allows you to be an innovator, never allows you to own anything. And that is not God's plan for you. You hear what I just said. That is not God's plan for you. I don't care who you are. That is not God's plan. I don't even care if you like being a nobody. That is not God's plan for you. And if you like being a nobody, you like what he hates. And you need to come to the place where you hate what he hates and love what he loves. I want you to be a millionaire. I want you to be billionaires. I want you to be employers. I want you to own businesses. I want you to build buildings in the city and build buildings in the community. I want you to turn these rundown neighborhoods that have absolutely nothing going on into something full of life and living. Opportunity, the glory of God can be revealed in that place. Do you hear me today? This is Kingdom Incorporated. This is Kingdom Incorporated. This is what the kingdom looks like. Are you okay with getting up tomorrow morning and making bricks for the Egyptians? Are you okay with that? Because when you get up and you're making those things for somebody else, that's exactly what you're doing, and you will always be under the authority of that person you're making bricks for. It doesn't change because you complain about it. Doesn't change because you get mad about it. It won't even change if you change jobs and stop making bricks and instead make doorknobs. The only thing that changed is what you're making. But your position doesn't change. Until the innovation comes, and until the idea comes, and until the time comes that you're able to own And you're able to be the voice of leadership and the voice of ownership. Whoever you're making bricks or doorknobs for, do it with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, with ne'er a complaint coming out of your mouth. Be thankful for those you are working for, even if you disagree with them, even if they're the most unrighteous person you've ever worked for or even exists on the planet. Honor them and respect them. Yahweh will take care of it. But begin to position yourself for the day that you go to them and say, I've made my last brick. I've made my last brick. Tomorrow, if you want bricks, you'll call me and order them from my company. Or tomorrow, if you want bricks, you'll call me, you'll call my office and find out if I decide to pass legislation to allow you to have bricks. Tomorrow, when you call me, you'll be looking for a job because I'm putting your company out of business. There's something to be said about righteousness supplanting unrighteousness.